Hi, I'm Anna, a clinical psychology doctoral intern, and today we're going to be talking about therapy speak. In theory, therapy speak is a prescriptive way that primarily therapists and therapy clients have learned to communicate with other people.
And tonight, I'll see you this weekend at my housewarming, right?
That's what I was.
To be radically honest, upon further reflection, it has come to my attention that I'm no longer able to spend time with your friend group because I find them to be insufferable and, quite frankly, toxic. In order for us to spend more time together, it's going to have to be one-on-one outside of them.
See, I just don't think chicken parm would really fill my cup tonight. Let me connect with my inner child. Okay, she wants an egg salad. No bacon. Sorry, no bacon.
Thank you for feeling comfortable to share that with me, but I will respectfully be withdrawing my engagement on this specific issue in order to maintain the emotional bandwidth required to keep my growth and health and well-being furthering in this current period. So I respect you to go forward with that in your own space, but I will be withdrawing my engagement in this current instance.
When I first heard about the term therapy speak, to tell you the truth, I noticed some feelings of defensiveness come up for me because I was thinking, I'm sure that I at some point on this channel or even with clients have given people sort of a template of how to communicate with others in a way that honors their mental health, because that's a common job of therapists, is to teach people how to effectively communicate with other people. So I've been reflecting on what is bothersome about therapy speak and in what way it's different from just teaching people communication skills, and here's what I noticed. There's a malignant underbelly to therapy speak in which people use it in a very hyper-individualistic way. They use it in a way that feels very inauthentic and unnatural, in a way in which it kind of feels like they're turning off their empathy for the person that they're speaking to. And it is sometimes weaponized by manipulative people. Common example of therapy speak that's been circulating in the past few years is an example of a woman named Anna. I'm not sure where this is from. There have been articles written on it. Who was dumped by a friend over text message, and the text message said, "I'm in a place where I'm trying to honor my needs and act in alignment with what feels right within the scope of my life, and I'm afraid our friendship doesn't seem to fit in that framework. I can no longer hold the emotional space you've wanted me to, and think the support you need is beyond the scope of what I can offer." Very formal. It's been called like the HRification of therapy speak. We'll get into it. A few days ago, also, Jonah Hill's ex recently came out with some texts that are allegedly from him, in which she accuses him of being narcissistic and emotionally abusive, and essentially weaponizing therapy speak. So the texts go like this. Plain and simple, if you need surfing with men, boundaryless and appropriate friendships with men, to model, to post pictures of yourself in a bathing suit, to post sexual pictures, friendships with women who are in unstable places and from your wild recent past beyond getting a lunch or coffee or something respectful, I am not the right partner for you. If these things bring you to a place of happiness, I support it and there will be no hard feelings. These are my boundaries for romantic partnership. My boundaries with you based on the ways these actions have hurt our trust. Will respect you either way, but these are my boundaries of this romantic relationship. Thanks. I'd love to know before the premiere so I'm not put in a position of publicly flaunting our love if my boundaries are going to be continued to be disrespected. That would be hurtful and triggering for me. Take some accountability and operate with respect. It's that simple. It's just constant and doesn't reflect where we're at or where you say you want to be. I respect your skill and your surfing. I respect how you want to present yourself. I respect that you're hot and beautiful, and I respect however you want to live, but I also respect myself and what I'm interested in my own, and what I let into my heart and inner circle, so celebrate yourself and your life however you please and shine bright, but I don't want to have to deal. Now, you know the drill. I'm not going to speculate on the character of the people involved in this. I don't personally know them. I don't feel comfortable acting like I know them. I did find these texts to be interesting in the context of therapy speak. These texts talk a lot about boundaries. They talk about accountability, respect, trust, getting triggered. Phrasing friendships with women in unstable places, to me, kind of sounds a little bit like a veiled way of slut-shaming, but maybe that's just me. And they're framed in a very, I love you, but I love me more type of way. When I saw these messages circulating online, I thought, on paper, there's nothing wrong with the structure of these texts. They're formulated as, these are my boundaries, please respect them. It's perfectly okay to set boundaries with people, to tell them what your deal breakers are, and to decide to part ways if there happens to be an incompatibility between your needs and their needs. But when we get into the content of texts like these, it gets a little bit more complicated. Because while, yes, we all have a right to set whatever boundaries we want for ourselves, for other people, I think we're getting to a place in our culture where it's considered that we don't even have to do any sort of introspection or reflection on why our boundaries are the way that they are. There's not a whole lot of, hold on, let me see, is this boundary even appropriate to have? Is this maybe a controlling boundary? Like, telling someone that they can't go surfing with men when their job is to be a surf instructor? Let's think about that. Why is that a boundary that I have? Or surf instructor posting a bikini photo. Why is that a boundary that I have that my partner can't do that? Or hanging out with women who party. Why do I not want my partner to do that? We're getting to a place where everyone has their boundaries and they're considered like set in stone, rigid. You have to respect them or else. And there's not a whole lot of, first of all, challenging, is this a boundary that maybe I should budge on a little bit, that maybe I need to do some work on when I get triggered by it? A few months ago, I posted a video on the difference between privacy and betrayal. And the gist of it was, privacy is, something that you do within the privacy of your own home or your own time or whatever. A betrayal is when what you choose to do with that privacy could hurt someone else if they knew about it. So for instance, if you go to brunch with your friend and you are gossiping to them about a different friend, is it your private right to do so? Yes, absolutely, but it could still be considered a betrayal by the person you're talking about. And so the question asked in that video is, at what point is a line crossed where someone has a specific boundary or a specific thing that they consider to be a betrayal that is actually very controlling of them to try to enforce? So, like a person who doesn't want their partner to ever leave the house without them. That's a boundary that they have. They might consider it a betrayal if their partner goes out of the home without them, but should it be? That is controlling behavior. Should that be a boundary that they have? And the conclusion I came to in that video was that we all have a right to whatever boundaries we have, and other people have a right to say, that doesn't work for me. And so ideally, in an ideal world, if someone has these hyper-controlling boundaries, they're not going to find anyone that is down for that. They're not going to find anyone who's compatible with their boundaries, because their partner is going to say, what do you mean I can't leave the house without you? Of course I'm going to do that. Let's break up. But now I'm also starting to wonder, at what point is it worth asking ourselves, okay, is this an okay boundary for me to have? At what point is the onus on the person with the boundary to do some self-reflection? And therapy speak, just like boundary setting, is okay in terms of structure. It's the content that someone who is manipulative or controlling or whatever else could make it problematic. Imagine that someone named Danny buys you an expensive present, and you say thank you and you go about your day. Then Danny asks you to go to an event with him. You say you can't attend the event, and then you get a text from Danny that says, I've given some thought to this friendship, and unfortunately I cannot continue to be in contact with someone whose love languages do not feel reciprocal. Very therapy speak type of thing to say. Danny is structuring the issue as a lack of reciprocation, but a closer examination into the content of what he's saying reveals that it's actually a form of emotional blackmail, a form of wanting to guilt the other person and make them feel indebted to them in order to get what they want out of their behavior. I've been reading this book on boundaries recently that was recommended by another therapist. And there was something that kept bothering me about this book, and I couldn't quite pin it down until I sat down to think about this topic. And then I realized it's the fact that boundaries are framed as this be-all, end-all, inherently valid construct regardless of their content. That everyone must respect our boundaries or else see you later. And I think that's what I found so interesting about those text screenshots that I saw that are allegedly from Jonah Hill. It's that I do get the sense that it's kind of coming from this place of power, like, these are my boundaries X, Y, and Z, and you must respect them if you want to be with me. No sort of negotiation, no sort of flexibility there. If your boundaries are things like You must treat me with kindness. You cannot yell at me. You have to be there when you say you're going to be there. I think that's perfectly normal content of boundaries. But if your boundaries are more like, you can't hang out with women who party, or you can't go surfing with other men even though you're a surf instructor, I think no matter how you structure that type of content, there's going to be something questionable about it. And therein lies the first issue with therapy speak. It can be weaponized in order to control or manipulate or hurt other people. It's not therapy speak itself that's the problem. The problem becomes the way that certain people use it as a weapon. Therapy speak is like any other tool. Let's say the tool is a fork. A fork can be used to help you eat lunch, or it can be used as a weapon. It's not on the fork. The fork is not created as a weapon. It's created to help you for a specific task. So we shouldn't blame the fork. We should instead blame the person using the fork as a weapon. In other words, I don't think that therapy speak is inherently bad. I have therapist friends who communicate in this type of style because it's what comes naturally to them after years of training and learning how to communicate in a very cookie-cutter template. But I do think sometimes people also can co-opt therapy speak, especially people who don't have those life experiences, like going through 9-10 years of training to be a therapist. I feel like it often is those people for whom it doesn't come as naturally because they don't have those life experiences that would promote them speaking in this way. And so they're using therapy speak very instrumentally for a specific purpose as a weapon. And therein lies issue number 2 with therapy speak, which is that it can feel very inauthentic and therefore cold and callous and kind of like you're stripping off the humanity from the communication or turning off your empathy for the person that you're speaking to. Back to that initial example from the article that I mentioned, the woman named Anna who received a text. Does it come naturally for the person who sent this text to use words like alignment, scope of life, framework? I obviously don't know. It could be, like my husband always makes fun of me that I use very old-timey, florid language, even colloquially, but that's because I'm a writer. Florid, old-timey language comes naturally to me. I love those kinds of words. It's not like I'm putting on a show, But if this person who sent Anna this message usually speaks in a very straightforward, casual manner, and then hits Anna with such HR language, it can probably feel a little bit destabilizing to be on the receiving end of that. Anna might even wonder, who is this person? What happened to my friend? Were they abducted by an alien? Are they a robot? Is this an AI text message? It can feel very depersonalizing, like suddenly this person doesn't care to talk to you human to human. They're just trying to cut off loose ends, almost in a way that like their attorney told them to. And the thing is, I think sometimes that kind of communication is necessary. If you've spoken to someone over and over and over again about your boundaries, about your expectations for the relationship, and they are not able to meet them, and they're perfectly reasonable expectations for you to have, like inherent respect and support and care, and you know that the other person has no self-awareness or no desire to change, no accountability on their part, I think it's fine to hit them with therapy speak because you have no reason to believe that this person is going to change their behavior. And if you're on the receiving end of that, it might feel to you a little bit like, what the like, where is this coming from? Why can't we talk about it? But sometimes you might not even know how many times that person has tried to communicate with you and you were not receptive to it. So now this is their last resort. Like if I were to try to decipher this text that Anna received, it might be that this person feels like they've been taking on a very supportive role that maybe hasn't been reciprocated by Anna. Maybe they feel like it's always give on their part because of whatever emotional support Anna needs and that they don't feel they're receiving anything. I don't know. Again, like I don't know these people. I don't know the situation. That's just if I were to give a guess, as a translator of therapy speak, what they're talking about. But it's also a possibility that the roles are reversed here and that the person sending this sort of text is the one being inauthentic, hurtful, manipulative, cold. Context is important. The takeaway here is that if you genuinely care about something and they haven't done something horrible, talk to them in an authentic way. Don't go for these very rigid templates. Speak to them person to person in what comes naturally to you. Let it be more of a conversation rather than very rigidly standing this boundary in a very therapy speak way. And on the flip side, I don't think we need to always judge people for doing therapy speak without knowing the backstory, because again, you don't know how many other ways this person has tried to communicate with this person. And then my last issue with therapy speak is the hyper-individualism. American culture as a society is obsessed with boundaries and putting your needs first, which are two big pillars of therapy speak. Personally, I think that both individualism and collectivism have serious pitfalls when taken to an extreme. I do tend to think that the middle ground is the most balanced approach that minimizes those risks that both of them have. When we become too individualistic, we forget that we're not the center of the universe, and other people also have needs of their own, so there can be a little bit of flexibility with some of our boundaries about negotiating. Something doesn't have to be convenient for us 100% of the time. We can sometimes make small sacrifices or even big sacrifices if we so choose. You know, like I have a rule that I stay present when I'm on outings with people. Like I don't go on my phone during dinner, during dates, and so forth. And recently my friend was having a panic attack on a plane, and so I decided to speak to her, to text her in that moment, even though I was on her dinner date. And I told my husband, like, hey, I'm sorry, I usually wouldn't do this, but it's an extenuating circumstance. I loosened my own boundaries because I care about her, because I know this doesn't happen 100% of the time. It's an off occasion where she needs some extra support. She needs it now. It's not going to help her 2 hours from now. I want to do this for her. I don't feel like it's burdensome on me. Society is veering into very rigid boundaries where you're very much encouraged to say, no, if this is a boundary that you have, no one can cross it, no matter what. If someone is texting you, going through a really hard time, and you're on a dinner date, you cannot respond. You have to stick to your ground. You have to say no very firmly. But in doing so, we're cutting ourselves off from other people. And yes, we're cutting off our supply to help other people. We're also cutting off our ability to receive help from others. And in a very hyper-individualistic society where we're kind of selfish, it's not gonna bode so well for us when we realize we're also isolating ourselves from other people. We're building this moat of water around a fortification that no one's gonna be able to get through. In conclusion, my thoughts on therapy speak are that it's fine as a way to structure. It's fine to give people a template of how to communicate effectively or more formally. It can become an issue when you're turning off your humanity for someone else, when they haven't done anything to deserve it, when you're not looking at the content of what you're actually saying through therapy speak with a critical lens, self-reflecting on whether it's appropriate content, you're not being genuine, or you're weaponizing therapy speak to hurt or manipulate or control other people. And when the latter happens, any sort of resistance from the other person looks pretty bad. Like if someone sets a boundary with you in this very therapist speak way, and the other person responds defensively or doesn't agree or gives pushback in some form, the person who said therapy speak is going to be like, whoa, I'm just setting a boundary here. Like, do you not respect my mental health? You don't respect me as a person? It can be very hard to argue with because you're essentially character assassinating the other person. By framing it in a very therapy speak way, you're baiting them and not allowing there to be any sort of negotiation on the content of what you're saying. But what do you think about therapy speak? Have you ever done it? Have you ever received it? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, all that good stuff. See you soon.